Hey everybody, Dave from Dave Moore Racing here, and today I am here with none other than the godfather of Reeds himself, Mr. Tony Doukas. Tony, how you doing this morning?
Oh, pretty good this morning.
Good.
How you been doing?
So how's
Yeah,
the
I'm still here. I'll do my Grady Judd. I'm here with my morning cup of coffee, all the way from the Isle of Man.
right on? How was the Isle of Man trip?
Oh, the Isle of Man trip was incredible. This year was a little bit difficult because of all the delays with the rain and the closed roads, but it was still unbelievable. I will tell you that's always been a bucket list for me. This is my second trip. I come back completely humbled at how good, how fast, how incredibly intense. And they use the term road racing, and that's true road racing, meaning racing on physical city streets and city and county roads,
Right.
not on a circuit,
Yeah.
not on a circuit track. We think of road racing as MotoGP, Moto America, actually road racing, but that true road racing is on street tracks.
Yeah, and there's no accounting for what's on that track. There
Nope,
could be
because that used. What they do is they race a day, then have an open day to resupply all the restaurants and everything. So all the oil, the antifreeze, the accidents happen, and they clean it up the best they can. And you head out the next day with who knows what's on the road.
right, exactly. Okay, so for the people that don't know the history of two-stroke racing in America, give us an overview of Tony Doukas. Give me the history of Tony Doukas.
Okay. Yeah, I started basically, I was born in 1953 when I was 14 years old in that would probably make it 1967. I started to work on motorcycles and race motorcycles. I'd already had taken all apart all my lawnmowers, my outboard motors, and things like that. And then I actually started riding a small street bike, and I bought I think it was probably a 62 or 63 Gilera, which was distributed by Sears. I would go down and buy the parts from the Sears warehouse to put this thing. That's where I got started. Then I started racing a 1970 125 MX, Yamaha MX with a Git kit. That was my first race bike. By 16, I had purchased a Husky 4-speed. Went on to race motocross for probably 10 years total. Um, Completely dominated the 250 expert class, AMA expert class in Florida. Started to travel a little bit around. Finally crashed the bike really bad in an accident in Hollywood. And I just never put it back together until later years. But I turned around and bought, then the YZ 250s were coming out, and then the Hondas. And obviously, I just upgraded to the newer Japanese machinery at that point. Um, did dirt track as well. I did motocross is where I started. Did dirt track. I started doing drag racing, and then I eventually went to road racing and started road racing an RZ. Actually, back then it would have been an RD 250 and an RD 350 and an RD 400, and that's what got me started in the road racing. And I've really never gone back since then.
Does
I
the
mean,
road racing?
everything. Yeah, I've just done nothing but road racing, and I haven't gone back to the dirt track or motocross. I would love to go back to dirt tracking. I just love sliding turns. I would
right.
be, I would be right at home in a car. Trust me.
So, where in this progression of things did the idea of starting TDR come from?
I was probably 21 or 22. Um, I started a company called. I actually had a shop called Duke Cycle, which turned into uh, DC Engineering in around 1981, 82. And I looked at the the different reed valve products. Fox and Boyson were just starting up. That was when the RDs came out and all the YZs came out with the reeds.
Hmm.
So I started researching materials, found out the companies that made them, ordered the different designs. I found what worked, what didn't work through the early '80s, and that's where I actually got started in the
Okay.
early '80s.
And that's when you
And
started.
that
Go ahead.
right, and then after that, I just kind of progressed from there. I was already at that point. I was already doing my own porting, my own pipe designs. Basically everything.
So now you hold some pretty prestigious records with racing and the stuff that you've built. Can you go over some of those?
Yeah, most stuff was. I mean, it's funny. I could take you a walk around the shop and show you. I should just say the latest fruits of racing, with meaning all the trophies that we have now. I probably threw out a couple hundred trophies when I moved over to my west coast of Florida. They were falling apart. I have a few originals that were good trophies back in the day, not this plastic crap they got today. So,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, it's just been a long, long, I should say, trip. Owning your own business is something that's extremely, extremely hard. Most people don't realize it.
Yeah, yeah, especially in an industry that's filled with massive amounts of misinformation, which the internet loves to promote. They say that a lie will make it three times around the world before the truth gets down the block, and the internet is the provider of that bad information. And one thing that I found in my journey in this is that you really have to understand how to separate the wheat from the chaff on this kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I go through the same thing. I've actually started. You and I have talked about this. I've actually started doing a very small amount of videos and a very small amount of documentation. I have a section on my Tony Doukas Racing website, and that has like what they call tech tips, which I've been starting to put the stuff in there. These are the discussions you and I will go over and break it all down, specifically so everybody can understand it. And I try and write in language that, or explain in language that anyone can understand versus getting into the real technical stuff.
Yeah. Well, if they can't digest the information, it doesn't really do them any good. And a lot of times, I feel like people that are smart enough to know about what they're talking about, but not experienced enough to know how everything is applicable, will talk smart so that everyone doesn't understand what they're saying. And then that makes them feel smart and appear smart. But the real smart people can break it down so anybody can digest it.
Right, correct. Yeah. And that's, I started with, um, I got to look up to see it, two stroke Gordon,
Yeah,
Gordon
Gordon Blair's.
Blair.
Yep.
Yeah. I've started with all the books all the way along the line. I actually ended up with Tom Turner. Do you remember that
Oh,
name?
yeah. Yeah.
Tom Turner software. I actually went through and looked at the little floppy disk that it was on, and it worked on a
Right.
Windows 95 system. My Windows 95 computer finally crashed not too long ago, so that's kind of mothballed now.
Right.
But
Right.
there are other companies like Mod Engine 2T, um, BuyMotion, TorqueSoft, and I basically own all of those softwares, in which I bounce back and forth and then make my own decisions and then go to the dyno and go to the racetrack and test from there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is the progression of that's the same thing that I do. I look at what the software has to say, then
Right.
move it over to the dyno, and the dyno gives us one picture, but the track ultimately gives us the final part of the picture. And those
Oh,
all of that has to work symbiotic with each other so that you have a race winning machine. No single part of it exists by itself in our world.
Right. Yeah, and to touch back on when you say race winning machines, yeah, like I said, personally, I won just numerous dirt track, motocross, and road racing back in I would say the early '80s, early to
Uh-huh.
mid '80s. Then I actually quit racing myself, and then I sponsored racers, and we won numerous. I'm waiting for my guy to give me back all the championship dates and series. You know what we did. We won back then. It was called the Sportsman's AMA Sportsman's Class, which was the RZ 350.
Uh-huh.
We ran that bike for I think 6 or 7 years and won the national championships with that. Finally, the guy that beat us, I knew he was cheating, and me being the mechanic, I could not protest him. My racer would not protest him. He comes back with the trophy in his hand, the winner, and we got second that year. That was the 8th year. And so I built this huge monster cheater motor. It's the only way I could beat you, and I'm retiring. And he had to control me because I was about ready to pummel the guy, but that's what he had to do. That's what he did. But at least he fessed up to it.
Right, right. Admitted that,
And I was at a road race, maybe 8 or 10 years ago with my friend Jim Ronan, and we spotted that guy at the road races, and everything was good. It was just racing camaraderie. I mean, we all shook hands and talked about all the old crazy days back in racing Daytona when there was 40, 50, 60 entries on the line, two waves of motorcycles. I mean, crazy stuff.
so do you think that that hits on a really important point, because it doesn't feel like, at least for the everyday man right now, racing isn't as big of a thing as it used to be. Would you agree with that? With the amount of people
Oh,
that are spectating, the amount of people that are participating?
absolutely correct. And I just feel, having traveled all through Europe, having business contacts all through Europe and the world, they still use motorcycles as their first transportation vehicles. They still grow up on motorcycles. All the little, if you've ever traveled to Europe, all the little cities got the narrow little streets. Scooters and motorcycles are running around everywhere. That is why the passion in Europe is still very strong. Here we grew up, and my age, we had motorcycles, and it went on a couple, to the 70s, and in the 80s all the muscle cars came out,
Right,
and the kids didn't grow up riding motorcycles. They grew up with their SS 396, their Camaros, their Trans Ams, all the muscle cars.
right, exactly. The one
And
thing,
I think that's the trend of, I should say, the trend of the younger generation flocking to motorcycle races for participation, racing, and watching really changed at that point. And NASCAR kind of came around and grew.
yeah, the one thing I will say, and like I hadn't watched motocross racing for years and years and years until Um, and I'm gonna throw a name out here, until I started watching the videos of Hayden Deegan learning how to race. And then, of course, when he started racing, I started watching that just to see, is this kid all hype, or is he going to be the real meal deal, right? And now I notice when I look at these stadiums, they're in spectator wise, these places are packed out. So now, but the one thing that it has become is it has become increasingly more a rich person's sport. To get involved and to race at the level that guys are racing at costs a bunch of money. I remember back when I was working for Honda in the 80s, we would have fathers come in every year and they would buy a new bike for themselves and maybe a new one for their oldest son, and the younger son would get the older son's bike.
Hands
And
down, yep.
yeah, and they'd walk out the door for like 8 grand, for and all kitted out in gear. Man, you can't even touch a bike right now for that. So it becomes a
Right.
lot harder for people to afford, too, with the, and I am going to talk a little shit on the four strokes now. The two-stroke was something I feel that people could actually put their hands on and repair. The
Right.
four-stroke, not so much. Although it was, and a lot of people are like, well, the modern four-strokes are just so much more reliable. No, we're actually thinking more about like the old XRs and that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
The modern four-strokes are really not that reliable. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, absolutely. When you start getting up into AMA expert and pro level, you're going to spend for a 250cc, four-stroke motocross engine. You'll spend $7,000 to $15,000, and it's good for one or two race days, and that's it.
Yeah.
Those guys actually they will run a motor in practice, and then when they go to the main, they may run a motor in qualifying. And if they got to go through a couple last chance qualifiers, they have another bike prepped or they have another motor prepped to run the main with because they don't last that long.
Yeah.
Um, and subjects we will touch on are oils, uh, things that do it. And one of the things is, and this is what you just brought up, the cue is it's up to us to bring that two-stroke back.
Yes. Yeah.
That is goal is to bring the two-stroke back into the. I've contracted a lot of racing promoters on, and again, this is because my forte is road racing, is to bring in a spec class, bringing in a spec bike, which is be my TDR that I'm building, which is a 392cc RZ 350 base bike. That would be set up to put different pro racers on it with the different, I should say, paint schemes of the older generations to bring up more attention and really run a two-stroke spec class. I mean, could be really, they're all very into it. It's a possibility of that even being put together. Um, Two strokes have come a long ways. KTM's come up with the direct fuel injection, uh, outboard motor two strokes. They now have the direct injection. They've actually got it to where burns as clean as a four-stroke EPA wise. There's no reason why two strokes can't come back.
Right, exactly. 100%. At this point, there is no reason for it. And so if it's not happening, then there's powers that be that are keeping it from happening, or it just hasn't reached the point yet where there's enough demand for it from the user base so that forces the manufacturers to have to turn their direction on the thing. But I think that with the revival of the two-stroke, and we know from life things go in waves,
Oh,
for a while it was two strokes and then it was four strokes, but I do feel that, and I have for years, that the stroke thing will take another hold of the market in the racing area, and hopefully bring in a lot of people that wouldn't have got into it because of the expense, as long as the manufacturers can make the thing where it's affordable for people to get into it. Because if it's a rich person's game, it'll only be only rich people will do it. Now I say that and people are like, well, you want a lot of money for what you do, but the parts, I mean, you think about the cost of pistons now, or any part of an engine, versus when you started, and just the price of stuff right now is just absolutely crazy.
oh yeah, it is. I have rental houses, so I go out and I go to buy stuff at Home Depot, and I haven't worked on those houses in a while. Now I'm finishing up because I'm selling one of them. I walk into Home Depot and I am absolutely floored with the prices of what I'm paying for.
Yeah, and the
On,
quality. You think about
oh yeah,
Yeah, you think
yeah,
about when you were a kid and you'd go in and you'd see a 2x4 that was absolutely perfectly straight with no knots in it. Now go find that. You know,
yeah,
it's just,
yeah. Well, it's all yeah. It's and that's the same with everything. And which I noticed a few things that you're doing about. I seen some posts on the CR 250
yeah.
because Honda still makes the CR 250 two stroke, correct?
They haven't done a two-stroke, and I'm going to say this, and then after the video, I might have to edit it out, but I don't think they've done a two-stroke 250 in a while. I think they're all, no, matter of fact, I know this. The only manufacturer that has continued to make a two-stroke 250 is Yamaha with the
That's
YZ250.
I
Yeah,
was just going to I was just going to correct myself,
yeah, that
and
it's,
said that I thought, nope, it's Yamaha that makes it. Yeah, and I every once in a while you'll see, and again, that's something that you and I could get out there and start pushing, two stroke versus four stroke stuff. You know what I
all the
mean?
time,
That's
all the time.
yeah.
That
Oh,
was-
I got a good one for you. I
Go
go
ahead.
to a track day, right? And I'm on a 392cc RZ, and you know what an RZ
Oh
350
yeah.
is. It's the Banshee engine in a road bike
Uh-huh.
chassis. Okay. And as a matter of fact, that's where the Banshee engine came from.
Right.
Okay. So I'm on the racetrack, a guy in this probably $60,000 Panigale super special race bike comes out of the turn. He's got acceleration on me, comes up next to me. I'm shifting through the gears. Now, this is on a 3/4 of a mile long straightaway. So I click through second gear, third gear. He looks at me. I look at him, fourth gear, fifth gear, sixth gear. He keeps looking at me, and he's got a much bigger, heavier machine. He hits the brake marker 5. I go to 3 and just dominate him, right? I
Right.
go through the turn, the pits after that track session. I had to do it. I stopped. The guy was from France, and his words were like, "What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?" And my friend goes, "Tony, you need to tell him." I said, "It's a 1984 350cc two-stroke street bike. It just drove right past your humongous 1200cc Panigale, and the guy couldn't believe it."
Well, I mean, there is such thing as power to weight ratio. That and that
Oh,
is you cannot get away from the idea of gravity's pulling something towards the earth, and the bigger it is, the harder it's going to pull on it.
right. Yeah, and just a lot of things is, I mean, do you use much titanium and lightweight products on the 250s?
And not really in the in okay, so my when I did drag racing, we used a lot of lightweight components, but in what I'm doing right now, which is the biggest part of the 250R market right now is in cross country racing. And that's because
Correct.
all the little races that happen around the United States where they'll still allow the vintage bikes to do cross country. And so right now, the thing is about having components that will stand up to an hour of just
Mm,
being beat to
exactly.
crap. So
Right.
at this point, our big concern is reliability, and dependability over weight. But there are some guys like in the drag racing scene still in the ATV drag
Oh,
racing,
absolutely.
titanium chassis, axles. I mean, every lightweight component you can put on them.
Yeah, and that's where we're at in the road racing world, and it makes a huge difference. And then once you start getting into, and this is some more discussions that we'll have, is all the working, rotating mass components within your engine weight.
Right.
There's a lot to be said. Lighter pistons, lighter crankshafts, lighter webs. Honda's hollow crankshafts, as we call them, the hollow webs versus the heavier web stuff. Internal rotor, lightweight rotors versus the external heavy rotors. There's just so much out there that can be done.
Tell the story again that you told me the other day ago on the phone about the guy that came in with the chain that was all bound up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had a guy come in with his ATV. I built the motor for him. He complained how bad it was. He's still getting beat by everybody. Shows up. I mean, dirt caked air filters. Throw them away. Gain a couple horsepower. Go look at his rear chain. It's so rusted and kinked up and bound up. You know, took the chain off, and it was an O-ring chain at that, but it was an O-ring chain that had been outside for years, I guess, and got rid of that. That was another 2 or 3 horsepower. Um, the disc brake rotor was blued, rolled over, stuck. So I pried that open. That was more. I mean, it just went on and on. And then I come to find out he put an advanced flywheel, an offset flywheel key. He'd put it in backwards, so he retarded the ignition instead of advanced it. And
They're their
and
own.
on and on and on. Needless to say, I spent 2 days on the dyno fixing all the stuff that he should have maintained and known about,
Right.
and sent him home, and he won the rest of the championship that year, and was just completely happy.
Yeah, I had a customer one time. He had bought a timing plate for his Banshee from me, and he was riding. This was down at Florence, Oregon, and he was riding the bike, and he calls me and he goes, I don't think it's really that much faster. And I was like, well, you need to play around with the timing a little bit, make sure that it's working with the rest of the components. So this goes on for about a year. And he'd call me when he's at the dunes, and I'd give him tuning advice and stuff. And we would miss each other on the weekends we were down there. So he calls me and he goes, I don't know, Dave. I've run against some other bikes that are faster, and they don't have anything more than I do. And I was like, when you put that timing plate in and you advanced it, because I had him advance at 7 degrees, I'm like, which direction do you turn it? And he goes, well, I don't remember. So he pulls the thing off and he calls me back and he goes, oh man, I turned that in the wrong direction. He put it 7 degrees retarded. So he put it at the 7 degrees advance. He went out and he called me right back and he goes, oh my God. Oh my God. This thing's so much faster. Then about an hour later, I get a call from his wife. He's on the way to the hospital because he'd looped the bike out in a fourth gear, or a full gears pass down the flats, and he got to fourth gear and just walked the thing over backwards. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, not only were you your own worst enemy to begin with, performance wise, but then when you did get the extra power, you definitely didn't treat it with respect. And
Yeah,
and I find that sometimes, and I know this is probably going to upset a lot of people, but I would say a good majority of the time, people are their own worst enemies in the stuff. Just massive.
yeah. I pulled up to a shop in I think it was Tifton, Georgia, and I'm in there, right, and I talking to the owner, and then clear across the shop, they're working on a Banshee, and they rode it around, and they pulled it back in, and I'm like, what's going on over there? Says, oh man, they've been working on that thing for 2 days. They can't figure it out. It just wants to run rough. And I yelled across the room, the slides are in backwards.
Backwards.
And
Yeah.
I hear one mechanic walks over and are like, well, who are you? And I mean, how would you know that? You just heard me from clear across the room. I says, trust me. 5 minutes later, I hear a whippa, whippa. And they both come over and go, oh my God, how did you even, just from listening to it, how did you know? I go, experience and years and years and years of tuning, listening. And one of the keys, and you and I have had this discussion, is I become one with the machine. My fingertips, my mind, my body, my every single part of me listens and feels for vibrations,
Right.
noise, sound of that motor at all the different throttle openings. I don't just go out there and just twist the throttle. I work every opening to check every jetting sequence, everything. And I'll come back and tell my mechanic, okay, make these 4 changes, and they go out and it's perfect.
Yeah.
Not necessarily time, but it's just now you can get to the point where you can really fine tune it.
Right.
That was so far off, but a tuned ear is so incredible. I talk to people on the phone and they're like, it's bogging. Now there's a rich sound, and there's a lean bog, and there's a rich gurgle. They might tell you that the gurgle is
It's
a
a
lean
bog.
bog. They don't know. They don't
Yeah.
know the difference between. I can feel it. I can hear it. You know.
Yeah. You can sit
That's where you
beside
and
the
I.
track and see them go by and go, too rich. too
Yep.
lean. Hear him come into the corner. Oh yeah, that guy's way too lean on the needle. Maybe he
Yeah.
makes the whole race, or maybe he cooks it coming into a corner
Yeah.
or exiting the corner.
Yeah. One of the things is in dirt tracks, more demanding than motocross because motocross, you're on and off the throttle all the time. Road racing is virtually the same, but under much heavier loads and much more critical. And a lot of times, the acceleration out of a turn, you can have the jetting just a tad on the lean side, but when you come down a flat out sixth gear and you start to downshift on the straightaway, with the throttle slides partially closed, it becomes too lean and you seize the motor because it heat sinks,
Right.
because you throttle, the cooling of the fuel is no longer there. Instantaneously, you got a heat seize.
Yeah. And that all has to be figured into the equation. Everybody always wants that magic bullet that just makes it go faster, but it's actually thousands of little magic bullets, and they're not even
Oh,
magic. It's just experience from. And how do you gain the experience? You blow a bunch of stuff up and you learn from the mistakes. And that's something too that people don't want to do anymore is actually go through the learning thing. Everybody wants what I call the McDonald's society, right? Where they just want to go in and they want to get it and they want it to hit their taste buds and walk out. But to sit down and actually make a wonderful meal that will have a much better effect on the body, people just don't want to do that anymore.
no, no, and again, racing and building a race motor and tuning a race motor are it's most incredible complex piece of machinery. You know, and the two stroke is the simplest piece of machinery there is, but it is not.
No. Yes. Yeah.
It is. You get into we've already discussed this digitally programming, all the ignition timing, all the different circuits and different types of carburetors, power jets, needles, nozzles, spray nozzles. It just goes on and on. Velocity stacks, reed cage designs. Then you get into exhaust pipes, different materials that hold different temperatures. What's going to be the best? Can you wrap it? Can you not? Can you water inject it? This is another new thing. I don't know if you played with that at all.
No, but I've been reading about it.
Okay, good. We're all on the same page. Okay. Uh,
Well,
you
and
know,
I like what you hit on there too, the whole thing about the simplicity of the two stroke and the complexity of the two stroke. I always liked A. Graham Bell's the title on his book, Two Stroke Performance in Theory and Practice. And that is,
yes.
we are practicing. It's, they call doctors practice medicine. We practice performance because there is as much in intuition about what's going on as there is facts or science about what there's going on. And not everybody hears it. Not everybody senses it. I've been around a lot of people that were good mechanics, but for them to tune their way out of a wet paper sack, it just was impossible. And it's hard to
Right.
watch somebody struggle at something where you're like, dude, the slides are in backwards. The
Yeah.
slides, the slides.
Yeah.
uh,
I'll never forget that day. Those two guys come over and just like, how in the world did you hear that from clear across the room?
yeah,
Been there, done it too many
yeah,
times.
because I've heard it a bunch of times.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
All right, buddy. Well, we both need to get to work.
Yep.
We're gonna do this. We need to set up a time where we do this as a continuing thing because there are a lot of people out there that need to know what you know and will benefit from knowing what you know. So I thank you so much for getting on the phone with me today. One of these days, I need to fly out to Florida and hang out with you for a couple of
Oh,
days.
absolutely. You're welcome anytime. And if I want to come to Coda, which is Austin, Texas racetrack.
Yeah, when are you coming there?
I don't know. One of the biggest things is this year I'm working on working on building three different road race versions, bikes, complete bikes. I build my own chassis, my own engines, everything. Working with the carbon fiber composites, doing all the vacuum bagging, infusion bagging, finishing all the bikes up. Then they're going to go to New Zealand. I've been basically invited as a racer and people who I know to go all the way to New Zealand to race. They're paying for it. The trip still probably cost me 25 or 30 grand,
Yeah.
even though of it's paid for. But we will end up, going down there and racing and debuting the bike. Then I will bring it back and road race it all next year. That's when I'll be out Dakota.
Okay. Well, you let me
Because
know, and I'll come and be your wrench bitch. Okay. I'll
oh,
keep the
there you go,
wrenches clean and hand them.
there you go. And hey, I'm 71 years old, and I and part of what you just said a while ago, I call it the you have your midlife crisis. Well, I'm past midlife, so I guess it's the end of life. We started about it. I'm 71 years old, almost 72, and who am I going to give this knowledge to? I told my wife yesterday, it scares me to think about all the things I do. I look at these products, I develop them, I find the materials, I design them on CAD CAM, I machine them on my CNC, I test them on the dyno, I ride them on the racetrack. I I mean, it's just absolutely endless. I do all the stuff on my Facebook sites, all the stuff on my websites. I design my own web pages. I mean, and then everybody goes, "When do you sleep?" I'm like, "I don't. I wake
Right.
up in the middle with a million things going on in my brain, and I write it down or have a little recorder next to my bed where I just figured this machining out on this part.
I do
I
you
did that on an
ever
airplane.
do you ever dream a solution to a problem and wake up?
I I was asleep on an airplane coming back from Vegas on vacation, and I wake up and I go, I got it, I got it. My wife's like, "What are you talking about?" I says, "I know, I figured it out while I was sleeping."
Yeah. Yeah. It's the mine is the same way. It never stops thinking about
No,
performance
never,
ever. Ever.
ever,
Never
ever.
stops.
Nope. Nope.
Once it gets into your core, it defines you. It's who you are.
Right. Yeah, we need to again, right back to the subject is we need to put it on paper and put it on video and get it out there.
All right. Well, thank
And then
you.
we'll and then you'll probably edit this out, but then we'll see how many haters we get.
Yes. Yes. Well, hey, haters drive the algorithm and we get paid for that.
And,
So,
and you know what? I've watched some of your stuff and other people's stuff, and you are 100% correct. The minute you get something that everybody wants to disagree with you or something, and they start some crazy conversations, guess what? Your algorithms just go crazy.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and like I tell everybody all the time, because there's a lot of people that want to argue with me. I'm like, you know what? Who you don't see arguing with me? Guys like Tony Doukas. Okay.
Right. Yep.
But you never see, I have never, and if a guy like yourself came in, and actually a guy like yourself would private message me and say, hey, Dave,
Exactly what I do.
yeah, you're off on this one, and let me show you how it actually works. And I would be like, dude, I am going to sit at the table and I'm going to consume everything that you say because you have done it at a much higher level than what I've done it, and you've done it for longer than what I've done it. So I'm going to listen. But if somebody comes in and says, "Oh, you're an effing idiot," I'm just like, okay, well, from this point out, I really have nothing to. I shut down. I don't care to listen to what you have to say. Your point may be
Right.
valid, but you didn't. Your approach was all off. You came in that corner way too hot, and now you're out in the weeds. So,
Yeah. And oh yeah, that's the other favorite thing is you get all these. I just call them the street riders, the street squids, as I always put them. And they're all like, "I'm so fast." They talk all their talk, and I'm like, "Come on out to a track day." We're not even talking a race; we're talking a track day, right? And I take them out, and about every third lap, I drive by them and slap them on the butt, and I'm like, "I thought you were fast, dude."
yeah,
And
exactly.
grapevine going down the highway, weaving through cars. Yeah, you are because your balls are bigger than your brains,
Yeah,
and skills really aren't there.
yeah.
And
It's easy to run your mouth, but running your bike is a little harder. You know.
yeah, here's another good one, and I got to get the video. is motorcycle racers are always road racers are always critical of the sidecar guys. Oh, you guys, you take up all our time. You guys, it's nothing. It's they're always complaining, and I always very politely challenge them. Says I will arrange for you to go out in a practice session. You can be the passenger and we will come back and then I want your true honest opinion. 90% of them won't even get on there. The few that will, I got a video. Three at the first lap, he was already beating on me to go in. Second lap, he was completely pounded on me, screaming. And when I finally got in, he rolls off the back, lays on the ground, crying like a freaking baby. And how hard, how scary, and how he'll never ever do it again. I go, dude, then don't complain about the shit because it's freaking hard, dude.
Yeah, yeah. Don't that's it's like I never talked down to anybody about the sport that they're competing in because I know for sure that it wouldn't be something that I'm just going to step in there and be Billy Badass about the whole thing. But
Exactly.
the little people out there that want to put you down for your stuff have obviously never done it. Or
Right.
they've done it at this level. They went out and beat up their a couple of buddies, but then they run against somebody that has the kind of experience that you do, and either they come out humbled and wanting to learn, or more indignant and just talk more crap. But that's up to them. All we can do is present the truth, and they can either take it or they can leave it. But
Yeah.
I believe it is our responsibility because we are literally what you had said earlier. All the builders who have died in the last 10 years, and we ain't getting any younger. We ain't getting any younger. And so I think that we have a responsibility to put this information down and try to teach the younger generations. That's why I love having my daughters in the shop and seeing them learning this stuff. And I know it sounds weird. And I have somebody's like, well, don't you have sons? Yeah, I do. I have two sons who are very successful at what they do, massively successful. But it was my daughters that wanted to learn this. And so I'm not going to take that away from them and not give
Sure.
them just because they're girls doesn't mean that they can't become very good at this and take on what I've learned to the next generation. It's either that or the stuff just disappears, but the
Right.
documentation of it is, especially in video and papers and stuff, the documentation of it is quintessential.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, here's a good one, and I'm sure your daughters will laugh their asses off. You get the phone call, and I need to speak to Dave because he really knows what he's talking. And your daughters are like, as far as most of the information, and when it gets totally in-depth technical, yeah, you and I have to get on the phone.
Right.
But for just information about the product, my wife does a better job of selling, explaining, and talking to them about all the basic mechanical things and questions that need to be asked so that they can give them the right part or help them diagnose a problem. And because they're a woman, they won't talk to
I
them.
know. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. They would rather talk to an AI avatar of us than an actual
Yeah.
human being who is learning the kind of stuff. Yeah, there is. I'm not gonna bang the whole sexist thing, but just because somebody isn't a man racer doesn't mean that they can't give good information. And like I said, I mean, for me, it had gotten to the point where I'm like, it actually depressed me seeing everybody that's dying. And I was ready to close the business down. I was going to announce in 2024 that 2024 was the end for me. And that's when my
Really?
oldest
Oh,
daughter, yeah, said, hey, Dad, I'd love to come and work for you and everything. And she had worked with me in the shop when she was in her teens. And so I knew she already knew her way around the shop. And then my youngest daughter, Rachel, was like, well, I'd like to do something too. And they have literally dove in to the point where now I know that I could come and visit you for a couple of days and the shop would still produce stuff. It would still answer the majority of questions. And they're 10 months into the thing and they're gobbling it up. So I'm like, dude, I don't care who you are. If you're willing to learn what I have learned so that you can take all of my knowledge and extract all the mistakes that I've made, right? And take all the good stuff and then move it up into the next generation. And then somebody takes that from you, then the art continues to grow. Otherwise,
Um,
otherwise
yeah,
it
that
just disappears.
I don't I don't have children or anything, and I've got nobody to give it to. So one, I either need to put documentation on paper and video, and I've been trying to get a few different. I got two different people, two different guys that I would hire here in a heartbeat, but I don't have the work for them, and they have families they need to provide for, and there's no way I could pay them enough. And they both basically, one still works at a shop and then does side work on the side. The other one owns his own shop, and he's very successful at it. So it's like for him to give up his time to come down here to learn, it just doesn't happen. He does come down from time to time, and I'm now kind of bringing him into the road racing picture so that he can get a better idea, so that I can actually start pushing some of the work off to him.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
mean, and
Awesome.
he's in the ATV business, mainly Banshees, but he's in the ATV business.
Well, I mean, this knowledge can go in any direction that it needs to go as long as it still goes.
Yep, exactly. All
So,
right.
all righty. Thank you so much, buddy. And we'll set up another time. And the next time we get together, I want to talk about reeds.
Okay.
I want to talk about the reeds and get the truth about reeds out there from somebody who has been doing this as successfully and as long as you have.
Oh yeah, I can go on for probably an hour to 2 hours on just designs, development, what I've done, materials, how I design and make all my own materials. I mean, I don't make it. I design my own materials and have it made, I should say. Um, but it's an incredible long process of learning for sure. I've been
Yeah,
doing it for way too many years.
100%, buddy. All right, well
Yep.
we're gonna end this show and we'll get back with you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in and stay tuned because we're gonna do more stuff.
Okay, cool. Good to see you again.
You too, buddy.